Tim McGraw is an unlikely activist. He started out as a loan officer at age 19, started his own mortgage company and had guys a lot older than him working for him at a really young age. And he said nothing ever really connected until he found the industry of cannabis. And he tells us his story. Okay, Tim McGraw.
Thanks for having me, Seth.
There we go.
Been looking forward to this for a while.
There you go. So, people hear your voice and think that you're, 65 years old?
That's not the first time I've heard that, that's
right.
for sure. I am, fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to look at it, 35.
Okay, but you've done a lot here.
Yeah, I've been in business for myself for basically my whole adult life. Started off pretty young. I started off in the mortgage business. Was a telemarketer when I was still in high school, 17 years old.
Got it.
Parlayed that into being a loan officer, and because of my voice, nobody knew how old I was or whether I knew what I was doing or not.
Right.
And moved up the ranks, and then by 19, I had my own mortgage company.
By 19?
By 19, yeah. Opened a mortgage company with my brothers. Realized pretty quickly that working with family is not the easiest thing in the world.
No.
Especially when you're putting in 80 hours a week and they're showing up whenever they want. But, it went well. We did well, but where I moved on to the wholesale side of things, and that's where I really started. We're seeing some major success.
All right, let's kind of take the opportunity and talk to you about why you started a business when you were 19. Not everybody does that. Some people, I think Andy Williams talked about building fences, but it was a side gig. This was the real deal. You were actually on your own and doing this.
Yeah, at 19, I was hiring and firing 50-year-olds. I've had 50-year-old men break down in my office. It was a difficult thing to, trial by fire, so to speak.
Yeah.
But it was a great lesson. I mean, you learn from your like your previous guest said.
Yeah.
You learn more from your fails than your successes.
Yeah.
So. I had some. I learned a lot in the beginning, that's for sure.
There you go.
It's carried over to today, hopefully.
There you go. So let's get into the McGraw abode when you're a little kid, right? Because stuff happened when you were 17 and 19. So let's understand this character, this Tim McGraw as a little kid.
Oh boy.
So who are you more like, your mother or your father?
My dad, for sure.
Okay. So and what did he do?
My dad was in the Air Force for 35 years, Chief Master Sergeant, E9, the highest enlisted rank you can reach. And he was a pipe fitter. And they sold Herbalife. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. They did pretty well at that in the mid-'80s when the multi-level marketing was hot. They made some good money, but both my parents were entrepreneurs, so that's where I got the entrepreneurial streak. But,
got it. And Air Force. So
Air Force, yeah. So I was raised in a pretty strict household.
And we thank him for his service.
Yeah, absolutely. My brother also went into the Air Force, so I spent a lot of time on military bases growing up. But my dad was definitely a huge influence on who I am today.
And you sound like you're from Chicago.
Yeah, it's just, I don't hear it, but
That's what
I
people
think I
tell
sound
you?
like people on TV. I think everybody else has the accent, but I guess it is pretty thick, so as I'm told. I got to work on that, I guess.
Where in the city did you grow up, or in Chicagoland, should I say? Right,
the suburbs, about 35 miles southwest of Chicago. So,
okay,
35, 40 minutes from here.
And if you're southwest, does that make you a White Sox fan?
Actually, I'm not a huge baseball fan, but I like Cubs games better.
Okay,
there's
fair
nothing to do at the Cell or at it used to be Comiskey, but
yeah. There was nothing to do at Comiskey because that was not a good team.
Buy crack or something, after the game.
No.
Not much to do. But
right.
Wrigleyville is a good time. So.
Right.
I'm actually going to the game. I think maybe on Sunday.
There you go. And so, but then you would have to be a Bears fan.
No, that's even crazier. I'm a Packers fan.
This makes no sense.
My dad's from Beloit, Wisconsin, so I was raised a Packers fan. I'm not jumping on the bandwagon like everybody else has. I was a Packers fan when it was painful to be a Packers fan.
For pre-Brett Favre, I would.
Yes, absolutely.
There we go.
Don Majkowski, Magic Don Majkowski. There was a time when Green Bay was as bad as Tampa Bay. And
yeah, that's exactly right. Those were the two worst teams.
Yep.
And it's like someone's got to win is the way that would happen.
Yeah, the Bears won by default, I guess, in the division.
Right.
But yeah, I've been to, I think, probably 16 or so Packers games up at Lambeau.
Okay.
It's a great stadium. Great place to watch a game.
It's got a storied past, no question.
That's for sure.
All right, so you are a football fan. You're like your dad. Well, what do you mean you're like your dad? He was in the military. He was a strict guy. You know, what do you mean you're like your dad?
I think being a man is being able to be put in pretty much any situation to be able to handle yourself.
Okay.
Whether it's debating politics or religion or working on a transmission or whatever, changing the brakes on your own car. Being able to work with your hands and be able to handle yourself in more intellectual type conversations.
Okay, fair enough. There we go. So that's a definition of man.
One
from,
of them,
from
yes.
Tim McGraw.
One of
Tim
them.
McGraw. Okay, and so 17, instead of going to college.
Yeah, I did briefly, or not. Went to a junior college briefly, but
You did. Okay.
I was making six figures when I was 17, 18 years old, so it was kind of hard to motivate myself to go to Joliet Junior College for my electrical engineering courses.
So you're doing that well as a.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. I was fortunate.
Yeah.
It was a lot of hard work, but we were printing money back then in the mortgage business. I mean, from the mid '90s all the way up until 2007, it wasn't. I mean, as long as you hustled, if you worked hard, you could make a lot of money.
Right. And you the entrepreneurial spirit handed down from both father and mother.
Absolutely.
And so you knew, as long as I get on this phone, I'll be fine.
Exactly. It's people say, "Oh, you're lucky. You're lucky." The harder I work, the luckier I get. It's that simple.
More than a few people have said that on this podcast. So
I'm sure they're all successful entrepreneurs, and they've learned from their mistakes.
that's it. Take us through a mistake from the early days.
Oh boy.
Let's learn from you.
So there's been so many. I think post some of my biggest mistakes came post recession. After 2008.
Yeah.
Kind of panicking. The business that I was in, or being in real estate and mortgage-backed securities, what went from paying me seven figures went to, what am I going to do next?
Right.
So I made some bad calls. Made a couple unwise investments. Realized I'm not a restaurateur.
So we know that now.
Yeah, I am not cut out for owning a pizza place. I'll tell you that much, which I did for a short time.
Yeah, you know that empirically.
Yes,
Right.
Yeah. What else? There's so many. They all blur
Well, what
together.
happened with the pizza joint? Let's try to. Was it a deep dish because it's here in Chicago or no?
It was a Rosati's franchise
right.
in Homer Glen near my house, where unfortunately nobody buys a pizza without a coupon. It seems, and they want to use multiples at that. I want to order 5 pizzas for $7.99 a piece instead of paying full price for any of them.
Right.
So that made it difficult. But it's just I didn't study the demographics well enough. I lived in Homer, so I felt like I knew it. But you need, in the pizza business, you want density of population. You want a lot of apartment buildings and so on and so forth. And Homer Glen is a bedroom community essentially. It's just half-acre lots and old cheap people.
Got it. Lesson learned. Study the market. Check.
There you go. Yeah, that's actually translated into our cultivation centers now, as far as figuring out the local community and winning local support for our cultivation centers.
Right.
And working backwards into the property. That's something I learned from my failures at other things.
Well, let's do a light overview of Revolution Enterprises, for understanding, and then come back to it in a bit. But give us a sense of what exactly you're doing right now.
All right. Revolution Enterprises is the DBA of our holding company, ICC Holdings. But Revolution Enterprises, through 2 of its subsidiaries, is the largest cultivator in Illinois. Mm-hmm. We have 2 facilities that are 75,525 square feet each. Over $23 million apiece. We believe, the most technologically advanced cultivation facilities in the world. Mm-hmm. I'm amazed at it, to be frank. Mm-hmm. I mean, we'll be operational here pretty shortly, but just when you stand in the middle of these places and realize it's all going to be full of cannabis, it's almost awe-inspiring. But we also do consulting work in Canada and other parts of the country. We're applying for licensing in Florida. There's only going to be 5 in Florida as of right now, unless the legislation, unless it changes to possibly 15.
Right.
But it's a very restrictive environment right now in Florida.
Yeah.
The Charlotte's Web, if you will, law down there is pretty restrictive. But it's such a big state, population-wise, that it's only a matter of time before that changes. Until that law is changed, it's going to be very, very limiting in what we can grow down there.
All right. So then, just going back to your grow here in the area, how'd you get the license?
Hard work and a lot of money and a lot of effort. That's for sure. And about 2.5 years of time.
Yeah. So it starts back. Let's do this story right now, right?
Okay.
So all the way back when, what?
Well, the law passed in January 2014.
Right.
But it became evident probably in late 2012, early 2013 that it was going to go.
Yep.
That it had legs, and we basically spent that time trying to influence the wording of the legislation. As you know, that bills are most of the time passed as shells, essentially, and then everything's promulgated through rules at a later date.
Right.
So we were involved early on trying to make those rules as commercially viable as possible, and I think we did a good job. I think that Bob Morgan, the program director for the state, who actually just stepped down, did a fantastic job in setting the program up. I think that absent of a couple transportation issues and things like that, I think Illinois is, quite frankly, the standard for the rest of the country going forward.
How come?
A couple reasons. The strict regulations. I think that although I'm a libertarian at heart, and in principle I agree with a lot of the advocates that want full legalization, full home grow, I think that at this stage of the game, regulation is a good thing for the industry, because you look at Michigan, you look at California, and they're perceived as the Wild West because to a great extent they are. I mean, it's almost impossible to regulate or wrap your arms around the California market or the Michigan market. Testing-wise, seed to sale tracking wise, none of that's going on in those markets.
Right.
So Illinois being very restricted in that it only has 21 licenses for the entire state of 12.8 million people. We think that that's the successful model going forward, is severely restricted number of licenses. So we are well regulated. Not that we're going to do anything, or anybody in Illinois would do anything unseemly, but it's just too burdensome. I mean, even the Colorado market. I mean, there's well over 1,000 commercial growers in Colorado. Then add into that all the basement and garage grows, and it's kind of been a race to the bottom there. There's so many people competing. There's so much downward pressure on price that these guys. I mean, I'm sure there's people harvesting 20 days early out in Colorado, not curing. I've been in, I don't know, at least 3 or 4 dozen grows and large scale grows in Colorado, and they wouldn't pass muster in Illinois. I mean, it's just a fact. I mean, I'm not deriding them in any way. It's just that's the market they're in, and you have to a certain degree, cut corners in Colorado to compete. In Illinois, it's going to be much different. The facilities that we've built, and I believe most other facilities will be a step above what you've seen to date here in Illinois. Most of the owners or most of the ownership groups are spending a good deal of money. Most of them don't come anywhere close to what we're spending, but they are going to be. We're going to push the envelope in Illinois. We're going to be. This is the new. This is where the innovation is going to happen in the industry, I believe.
Yeah. Well, how do you mean? Where are you pushing the envelope? What about innovation?
Well, our mantra at Revolution Enterprises is advancing the science of cannabis.
Okay.
We've been handcuffed since 1933 in the study of cannabis, and even now that it's opened up, you still have to go through NIDA and the DEA and to get approval. I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with Dr. Sue Sicily and how long it took her to get approval.
Right.
And then at the end of the day, you're getting ditchweed. The stuff about growing in Mississippi is, they grind it up, root ball, soil, fan leaf. The whole plant is ground up and it's rolled in the joints, and that's what you get to study. And there's no variety of strains. The THC levels are somewhere in the 10% range. So you're not not much science is going to get done when you can't modify your inputs. When you're not genetically trying to enhance or breed for certain conditions, which is what we're going to be doing in our facilities.
Yeah.
We've spent over $1.4 million per facility in laboratory equipment alone. Obviously supercritical CO2 extraction, but beyond that, we're going to be purifying and fracturing. So we can reduce the ratios of THC and CBD and THCA once it's activated, and take the psychoactive components out if we want to, or add more for that matter.
Right.
But while adult use or eventual for everybody is important, we still believe that it is a medicine. It really is. Whether people know it or not. Some people that smoke recreational, they might in their head think it's recreational or adult use, but they probably have anxiety or insomnia or something, and to them it makes them feel good. But at the end of the day, it's making them happier, and they're living a happier, healthier life for it. So we want to make sure that the products we develop are we try to pinpoint certain conditions and help with them. I mean, beyond epilepsy with kids, pain for MMS, glaucoma, you name it. There's if we continue to advance the science of cannabis, we'll be able to target those conditions and come up with new and better delivery methods.
Right.
So
you loan officer, you sound like an advocate. You
I
sound
am.
like somebody that believes.
Quite frankly, I said this to somebody yesterday. This is the first time in my life, and I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've owned dozens of businesses.
Right.
This is the first time that I absolutely love everything, getting up every day and doing what I do. I mean, it's so refreshing. Everything I've done in the past was, opportunistic. I was at the right place. It seemed like I could make some good money at it, so I did it.
Yeah.
This, I had no problem at all divesting from my other companies and focusing 3 years ago 100% of my time, 15 hours a day, to this endeavor. Because, well, first of all, it paid off because we were able to win 2 of those highly coveted licenses. But, this is my dream job.
There you go. Well, let's go back and make sure that we touch on the mortgage company. I think we talked enough about that, but then you went into wholesale, and that's when things really got going. And then we'll come back to Revolution.
Okay.
So talk about wholesale.
We sold our mortgage company. I forgot what year it was, but I immediately after that went to the mortgage-backed securities side of things, bundling and selling of mortgage-backed securities, which obviously was very profitable. I think I did about 1.4 billion in volume.
Is that it?
Yeah, just a little bit over the course of 7 or 8 years, and then it became obvious to me that this wasn't going to last forever. There was no way that it was sustainable. Values, the only way that it was sustainable is if values continued to increase like they were, and that we knew that wasn't going to happen. At some point, it was going to plane out. Nobody wanted to believe it in the industry. So during that time, from 04 through 08, I started to build other companies. Started flipping properties, started loaning money. Private equity type deals, hard money deals, managing real estate, preparing for the eventual downturn, and it turned out that I was right. And then
you were in. I mean, you were right at the crest of the wave, if you will. So
it was. I caught the end of the wave from the late '90s to 2007, 2008.
So you could see it coming.
Yeah, I mean, I was on the loan committee for the bank I worked for, so I saw the default rates. I saw where they were trending.
Right.
So I decided to quit and sell my ESOP because I had a substantial amount of money in stock options that I couldn't sell until I quit.
Right.
And I sold my shares at $31 and $27 a share, I think. And a few months later, they were penny stock.
So timing.
Yeah. There were some guys that were pretty upset that had millions of dollars in Fremont stock and saw it go bye-bye.
Okay. So how did you know how to do all this? I mean, you didn't go to college. You come out and you're making 6 figures, and then you start this company, and then you start that company, and you're loaning people money, and you're flipping properties. How do you know how to do anything?
Self-taught, I guess. I learned from other smart people. You have to be willing, to admit that you don't know everything, and find mentors or find people that you can learn from. And I was fortunate enough to have some, pretty smart people around me. My dad flipped properties my whole life, so I learned a lot from him, real estate wise. But yeah, it's you can learn anything if you put your mind to it. I mean, it's just one more skill. So. Did
you know you were a smart guy? Like, you didn't go to college because you were making money. How much of it was because you didn't like school?
I was a terrible student.
Right.
I actually think had I been in a school like my daughter is now, she goes to a Montessori school.
Yeah.
And it's kind of more of a less structured environment. As you can tell, I fidget quite a bit. I think I have a pretty severe ADD at this point.
I'm sorry, I wasn't listening to what you were saying. I suffer from the same affliction.
It's a shiny ball.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I was not sitting in lectures for 45 minutes and taking notes and retaining stuff. It just wasn't my. I'm a hands-on type guy. You know,
Right.
I learn from doing, not from seeing somebody write on a chalkboard.
Right.
So yeah, and my parents didn't push it either. My parents were definitely of the kind of old school in that, go out and bust your ass and you'll make money.
Right.
They didn't think college was necessary, so it wasn't really pushed on me. I think I'll probably my son's 16, and I think I'll highly suggest that he go to college, but I don't think I'll force it on him.
Right.
But
Why
it's
would
the
you
life experience really more than anything, I think.
Well, if you know that from practice, why would you push him to not push? Why would you suggest college if he wants to?
Because I wish I would have gone. I just had the experience. I went right. I guess I never really got to be a kid or an early 20. I've always worked.
Yeah. Right.
And I'd like to see him travel abroad and go study or something. I just wanted to have a lot of life experience. Not that I didn't have a ton of life experience in business, but there's a lot of things I missed out on that my friends that went off to college experienced.
Diverse life experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just meeting new people, and I was kind of stuck in a bubble of where I grew up and didn't get to experience a lot of that stuff.
What's the age difference between your son and daughter?
My son's 16, my daughter's 3.
So that's a fair amount of years there.
Yeah, it's called hitting a reset button.
I see.
Sure.
And the daughter is 3.
Correct.
And so this is an adorable, this is your princess, this is, right?
She's something else. She is a strong-willed, very, very intelligent little girl. We got our hands full with her, but she's, unfortunately, I think she has a bit of the McGraw brain. I think she's got a touch of the, ADD also, maybe, but she's definitely strong-willed. So hopefully that works out well for her. It did for me.
Yeah, absolutely. What did you mean by reset button?
When you have a so Nicholas was 13 at the time, so they're easy. At 13 years old, first of all, at 13 you're your son's hero. You're the coolest thing in the world at that
Right.
point. Then they hit 14, 15 years old, and all of a sudden you go from the coolest guy in the world to just dumb.
Yeah, you are a moron.
Yeah, I know nothing. I'm a dork. But so I get to hit the reset button, start that process all over again. You kind of gain some of your freedom back when your kids get into their teens. They can watch themselves. You can do it. You can have fun, go on trips. But now, with the 3-year-old, we've hit the reset button. It's all about her and not about me anymore.
Right, exactly, and she knows it, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, she's got us wrapped. That's for sure. She doesn't hear no very often.
How do the son and daughter get along if they have what sounds like different experiences?
Great. He's a great older brother. She can be mean to him, but he's great to her.
Right.
She's just very stubborn, man. Very stubborn. She wants it her way all the time.
So that's good. So that's what you're dealing with there. What's his mental makeup then? If she's the stubborn one,
he is. Well, now that he's 16, I think things are changing a little bit, but he's getting a little bit more. He was very risk adverse growing up. He was the cautious kid. He was the kid that would talk all his friends out of doing something stupid.
right?
But being I don't know if I should say this in the podcast because his mother doesn't even know about it yet. But being he just ran my 4-wheeler into my mom's garage, this wall of her garage, at a high rate of speed recently. He's and then wrecked his truck like 2 days earlier. He seems to be getting a little bit more ballsy these days.
Fair enough. I feel like we understand that as I have been a teenage boy, you have been a teenage boy.
I can't believe I'm alive, honestly. That same 4-wheeler, the same 4-wheeler he ran into that garage with, I shattered 4 ribs, broke my ankle twice. So. But oh man,
what are you guys doing on that thing?
Oh geez, insane things, I guess. I used to ditch school in high school, and not this 4-wheeler. Ditch school to ride my 4-wheeler all day long.
Yeah. All right, and you're no worse for wear, right?
No, I'm a mess. I am a mess.
Oh, physically a
Physically,
mess.
I'm a
no,
mess.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
Mentally, you're all together.
I don't know about that. That's debatable. You have to ask my wife.
Yeah, but you mentioned you broke before we started. Something wrong with your ring finger or whatever.
Yeah, I basically blew my hand into smithereens. The inside of my hand is essentially made up of just shards of bone and calcium deposits and scar tissue.
Based on what happenstance?
A few years ago on the 4th of July, we buddies and I usually buy about, I don't know, a couple hundred mortars, the 3 and 5 inch mortars, the ones they use at like Sox Park, the gigantic ones.
And you're saying this is a couple of years ago?
This is 3 years ago. Yeah.
Okay, so you're in your 30s.
I was in my 30s, and I'm driving around, and we had there was a drought that year, and I mean really bad, and so like the ground was like concrete. But I'm driving around. I got these things in my trunk, and it's July 3rd. And I go to pick my son up from his friend's house, and he's like, "Dad, you got those in your car?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Let's write some off." So I run to the shop, and I get a pipe and a sledgehammer, and I go to bury this pipe in the ground to use the tube to launch it, and I can only get in like 3 or 4 inches.
Right.
So the tube was longer than what the wick was.
Uh-huh.
So I had to hold the end of the wick, light it, and drop it into the tube. And my son's friend they had wrappers on them and rubber bands. So he's taking the plastic wrapping off these things, and when he did, he pulled off the slow burning wick, the green one at the end.
Yeah.
But there's like another 2.5 feet of wick. So he hands me it. I put it in the tube. I'm holding it, and it's midnight, and I'm lighting it with a MAP gas torch. And as the light is illuminated, I notice the green wick is missing, and that's the one that burns really slow. But my brain does the math. Well, there's like another 2.5 feet here of wick. There's no way. Not knowing it was instantaneous. So my hand's above the tube, obviously, because I'm holding the wick. I light it, and it goes off instantly. It comes out of the tube, shatters my hand. Glances off my head. If it would have hit me square in the head, I would have been dead for sure. But yeah, so I compound fractured these two my pinky and my ring finger, and the inside of my hand looks like it was had a meat cleaver taken to it. So that's add that to the rest of my plethora of injuries.
That's that story. Well, keep going. What do you have anything from sports or anything like that?
I got torn labrum. I completely tore my pec major off my shoulder.
Wait, what's the labrum from?
Football.
Okay, and the pec?
Pec major, working out, bench pressing. I have at my house. I have a gym in my basement next to my office, and being I have ADD, I bounce back and forth sometimes from the gym back to my office. And I was benching, and I was I had over 300 pounds on the bar, and
alone.
My last set, yeah. And my phone rang, and I went and got on a conference call for like 2 hours. And I went back into the gym, went right back to what I had been doing without warming up, like an idiot. Like I had no idea what I was thinking, but I go right back to have 3:15 on the bar, and it was like construction paper ripping. It was one of the sickest things I've ever heard.
Ugh.
And I haven't got. Basically, you don't get that repaired unless you're a professional athlete because
Right.
the rehab is so long. And
Right.
my daughter was about to be born, so.
So that happened.
Yeah, so I have a droopy left boob.
What about the labor? What about football? What position were you playing?
Strong safety
And this is in
for Lockport.
high school.
Yeah, high school.
All right, strong safety. All right,
Played a couple years of semi-pro football.
Oh,
that
really?
was fun. I mean, it's semi-pro is kind of a misnomer. It was basically club football, but it was played with some really really good athletes. I was the only guy that wasn't a D1 athlete on the team, but it was fun, a lot of fun.
Strong safety, you got to be pretty fast.
Yeah, 4.7, 40, somewhere in there.
Yeah, you don't look that fast.
Yeah, I know, right? I don't look athletic either, probably.
All right,
I held my own.
So you got this active guy who literally you cannot sit still, right? You're going from conference call to benching 315 almost.
Yeah, almost. Yeah.
Yeah, you're crashing your 4x4, which has been handed down genetically to your son, and you've got the wholesale business humming, but you see, the crest of the wave, as we said, and it's time to get out. So talk about those years when you're, flipping houses, loaning money, when you weren't necessarily in the business, but you're looking at other businesses.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out my next move.
Yeah.
So, kind of by organically, my McGraw companies, which is my real estate company, went into property preservation, which is management of foreclosed homes. So there's obviously a glut of those.
Right.
But it's a terrible thin margin business, and it was not a fun industry.
Right.
But we grew that to the third largest in the country. Again, they had no passion for it, but it paid the bills, and it gave me the opportunity then to go and pursue this. You know,
Right.
I had enough income and did well enough that I could kind of essentially turn away from it and hand it over to my VPs to run the divisions and focus solely on the cannabis space.
So what's day one for you, cannabis, if you can remember it?
Well, it's a couple of my friends moved out to California in the late 90s,
Okay.
99 or 98, and they've been growing in Northern California ever since. So I'd go out and visit them, and your phone doesn't even work up in it's been parts of Northern California, up in the woods up there, and so that, well, I don't look like it. I really do truly enjoy the kind of hippie culture of the unplugging, getting up and hanging out with them. It's a completely different pace. So I've been not involved in, but I've had friends in the industry and been around the industry for a long time.
Yeah.
I also have friends up in Michigan that grow. And initially, Michigan was where we were before the Illinois law. I think it was back in 2011 or 12 when I first really got serious about it. Illinois I knew was a long way off, so I looked at Michigan. But again, Michigan's not really a commercially viable market. You would have to sell to the great. It's because of your limited number of plants and the way it's set up with caregivers and whatnot. There's not really a good serious commercial way to operate there. But they do produce very good cannabis up there.
Mm-hmm.
In Northern California, I think, and in Michigan at this point, are probably producing the best cannabis, I think.
Interesting. Okay. And that's based on, again, empirical evidence.
Yeah, I've been known to try it now and again.
So you got your friends growing in both places, and you're starting to learn the market a little bit as almost as just as a friend, right?
Yeah. Well, I've been in finance, for so long that it became obvious to me that there was this chasm between the growers in California and elsewhere and the capital markets.
Right.
And I had a lot of experience in those markets, raising money for real estate deals, millions of dollars. So I know how to speak that language, but I also know how to speak the cannabis language. I have credibility in both worlds, I guess.
Right.
So I saw that as I was kind of unique in that way. I thought.
Yeah.
And just now, still, I mean, there's a lot of hesitancy from the capital markets, from investors, from family offices, from private equity firms, to get involved because they don't know how to underwrite these deals.
Yep.
They try to stick them into an Excel spreadsheet that they've used on other PE deals, and they don't understand the nuances of the industry. And because I've been around it so long and kind of been a student of it, I felt like I could bridge that gap.
So let's dive in there. If I am, used to just, this type of business and I plug it in the Excel sheet that always works, what are you talking about? What's different?
Well, I'll give you an example. A lot of the PE guys, they're Excel spreadsheet guys through and through.
Yeah.
And one example would be we met with a group, I won't mention the name, but they were interested in applying in Illinois for licenses, but they determined, based on their pro formas and their Excel spreadsheets, that dispensaries were more lucrative than cultivation centers.
Okay.
And they did that because they used bad assumptions. They said, well, if we assume, 3/4 of a pound per light and $2,000 a pound wholesale, then dispensaries are more profitable. Well, if you knew the industry, you would know that those are terrible assumptions to put in, because if you know how to grow at all, you should be able to do better than the pound of light.
Right. And
in an Illinois market, it's going to be much more than 1,500 pounds. So, not understanding the industry and what the norms are, handcuff them or cause them to make bad decisions where they sought dispensary licenses and.
They sought dispensary licenses.
They sought dispensary licenses instead of cultivation. They didn't win any, this particular group, but that's one example. But there's also the understanding the industry and where it's going. Flower obviously is something that's going to decrease over time as far as use goes. I think extracts, we believe, are the future of the industry, and then not just extracts, but then like I talked about before, the purification and fracturing and targeting conditions by engineering essentially strains and products that either through sublinguals or transdermal patches, but figuring out the best way to both ingest it or take in the medicine, and the best delivery method is very, very important for people to have effective medicine.
There you go.
So
you see the chasm, right? And so then here we go. Here comes Tim, right? So what's step one in terms of actually acting?
Well, step one was I had to first determine whether I wanted to do Michigan at all, or whether I wanted to invest in there, and it became rather obvious that we didn't.
Right.
But next was putting together the team. One thing we're very proud of at Revolution is we wrote our entire application ourselves. We didn't hire any out-of-state advisors. The application, every word of the application was written by a member of our team,
Right.
our own in-house talent. And I'm not knocking the other guys. I mean, that's the way it's done all over the country.
You're proud of yourself. You're happy. That's fine.
That's great for them. It works. I mean, a lot of these guys, Denver Relief, and a lot of the other guys are very, very good at writing applications.
Yep.
I give them tons of props. They're super successful. But we wanted more ownership of it, you know, and we wanted to build it from the ground up. We didn't want to do take something that had worked somewhere else and do a kind of a find and replace and plug our name into it and modify it to Illinois law a little bit. But we wanted to build ours from scratch, from the ground up. And we scored a 988. I mean, there was guys that scored higher than us, but we're proud of the fact that it was the first time this application had ever been seen by anybody. It wasn't retreaded from another state.
Right.
And then we did a lot of things differently too. I think that like I said earlier, we worked backwards into our real estate. We went out and we found communities that wanted us. The two towns we're in are Barry and Delavan. The reason we're in Barry and Delavan is because they sought us out and wanted us to come into the town. And then we found the property. We backed into the we bought real estate that wasn't for sale.
Right.
Instead of going out and finding real estate and then trying to force ourselves down the throat of the local community, we went where we were wanted.
How did you connect those dots? How did you know those towns wanted you? How did you get introduced to them? What's the
Delavan was actually a friend of a friend who grew up in Delavan and mentioned it to the mayor and the village manager and said, "Yeah, we'd love to meet Tim, have him come out."
Yeah.
So I did, and we hit it off. And they knew my heart was in the right spot. While this is a capitalistic endeavor, they saw how passionate I am about this and how much I believe in doing this the right way. This is not just I'm not just looking to get rich. This is not a get rich quick scheme for us. We're in this for the long haul and for the betterment of the industry.
Now let me, because anybody listening, you've got the background to be one of the get rich quick. Let's make a quick dollar here. That's where you were. That's what you were doing. How come it's different? In all seriousness.
Again, because those were opportunistic jobs or businesses that I was in that I didn't care. I mean, not that I didn't. I cared a lot less about those. I care about this industry. This means a lot to me. I know how. I've seen how cannabis helps people. I've seen how it changes people's lives, and I've seen how. It's very, very very, very easy to sell your name in this industry by doing things the wrong way and not having a long view of things.
Right.
So everything we do at Revolution Enterprise is not an immediate ROI. We do things that we're not going to make money on for a long time.
Right.
Because we believe we have a moral obligation, quite frankly, to advance the science because we've been handcuffed for so long. And we've been lied to for so long that somebody has to spend the money and innovate and push the ball, continue innovating and not just say, okay, well, we're up and running, we're making tons of money.
Yeah.
Let's just keep pumping out flour we're going to do what's necessary to make sure that the medicine just gets more and more effective and more widely used.
Yeah. All right. So you find these two towns. They find you. What was the second town? How did they find you? You found them.
The second town, Barry. The mayor of Delavan was from Barry.
Oh, there you go. So we like that guy.
Yeah, so I hooked up with the mayor and village manager there. The same thing. Met with them. Met with the police chief. Met with the city council. And
when was that?
Oh, geez, that was probably April or so of last year. The law passed January 1st, 2014. We knew kind of the framework of what the law was going to look like as far as the 2,500-foot setbacks from residential, no schools, daycares, so on, within 2,500 feet. So we started a lot earlier than most. In fact, we were a little bit miffed when later on in the process they gave everybody an extra 60 days post-application to get their zoning handled.
Right.
We had our zoning handled in June.
You had that
6 months earlier. We had special use permits, so that was a little bit annoying, but Yeah, we tried to do like we do in everything else. We try to do things the right way and early on. We don't wait till the last minute.
Yeah.
That's why we'll be operational here within the next month, and we're the biggest facilities in Illinois because we didn't during the application process, and we assumed we had won in districts 20 and districts 8. In District 8, we also applied in 6, but we didn't feel as good about that one.
Yeah.
But we went forward with construction, with engineering, with architecture, as if we'd won those 2 licenses. So we spent a huge amount of money that might have been completely useless to us. The engineering and everything might have been completely useless, but we ended up being right, and that's the 2 places we wanted. So we hit the ground running.
Wait a second. That is, I mean, I understand you're a risk taker, but that's crazy. What if you didn't win those licenses?
We would have lost about $1 million.
What? That's what your answer is?
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Turns out you didn't lose it.
No.
You hit the ground running. So now it's kind of mid 2014.
Mm-hmm.
And tell us about the last year. What's been going on for the past 12 months?
Well, okay, so mid 2014, we're putting the team together, winning the local support, getting letters of support from police chiefs, and designing the building. The vast majority of our effort was put into the design of the building and engineering it. A lot of people that submitted applications drew the thing up on a napkin, so to speak. We had full engineering construction documents by the time we went to application.
Right.
We submitted the state 70 pages worth of blueprints. So we went. Our goal was to make it impossible for the state to say no to us. Essentially, it was a merit-based application, and we wanted to hit a home run on every single. There was 8 schedules, 8 categories that got scored on, and our plan was to, or 7. I'm sorry, was to make it impossible for them to say no.
Yeah.
To do that well on each schedule.
But they did say no in 6.
They did.
Why?
I don't know. The scores weren't released. We lost to PharmaCann in District 6.
All right. Not that you're bitter.
Yeah. PharmaCann's great guys.
Yeah.
Teddy Scott's a great CEO, and they're a well-run company.
So you've got the 2 licenses.
Mm-hmm.
You're building out. You're getting ready. Talk about the last 6 months. What you've been actively working on.
Building the facilities.
Yeah.
We broke ground when the scores were released in February 8th, I want to say, something like that.
Yeah.
And then we had about 6 weeks from when we knew what the scores were until the actual permits came out. So we used that time we immediately broke ground.
Yeah.
So another thing we did during the winter, early on in the winter, is we winterized all 3 of our sites. Put visqueen and hay down so we wouldn't have permafrost, or a lot less permafrost.
Right.
So that helped a great deal. We were able to break ground, and when all the guys couldn't even do anything in the middle of winter, we were moving dirt.
Right.
They actually we took so much dirt out of one of the locations. They call it Mount Delavan. There's like an 80-foot tall dirt mound next to one of our sites.
Yeah. Your son can take the 4x4 up there.
Oh yeah, exactly. We're actually going down there, and I think we're going to take him down there on Friday. Oh, he's got finals, so I can't take him down on Friday. But he hasn't seen it yet. He hasn't been there yet.
Okay.
Pretty soon he won't be able to go in. So once we're operational, nobody can go inside.
Right. But talk about how how you talk about, just because it just came up in conversation, how you talk about it, not necessarily with the 3-year-old, but with the 16-year-old. What does Dad do?
All his friends know. It's kind of hard to hide, I guess.
Right.
I'm in the paper a lot, and So yeah, no, my son's been raised to understand that it's a medicine, and it's not for his at his age, it's not good for his developing brain, and he gets it. My son definitely does not smoke. Someday
simply because of that one thing that his dad has told him, that it's not good for his developing brain, or
no, I think he's made a decision on his own. I think that he's a smart kid, and it's not what he's all about. I'm sure he has a beer now and again, like all teenagers do, but
right.
he's a very, very smart kid.
Good.
So we did something right.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so you don't have permafrost. You build the buildings, fantastic, and you're ready. Is that right?
Yeah, we like I said before, we're very proud of the fact that we're the biggest cultivator in Illinois. But on top of that, we're going to be one of the first to market. So a lot of our competitors have yet to break ground.
So what does first to market mean? What do we do from today?
Well, some of it I can't talk about, but
that's fine.
in roughly 30 days or so, somewhere in that window, we'll move genetics in and start operations.
Okay.
We'll continue to ramp up the facilities over the rest of the year, but by the end of the year, we should be at 100% capacity and be able to produce roughly 9,000 pounds a year.
January 1st, 2016, what do you do?
Well, hopefully January 1st, 2016, our patient population is greatly expanded because we're only at 2,300 right now. But we feel really good about we were recently able to get 11 of the 14 conditions that we petitioned for through public health added.
Good.
So Illinois has now got IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, migraines, post-operative pain. I can't remember all of them, but diabetes got shut down and anxiety got shut down. But what was cool about it is the Department of Public Health essentially gave us a roadmap as to how they want these petitions submitted. By we need to make sure that the petitioners show up. Yeah. And on behalf of their own petition and how that they need to be worded. So I think that the public health has given us a good roadmap on how to expand it even further. Because
what else is part of that roadmap? Because we've talked to other guests about the rules in other states and how they leave things off that shouldn't be left off. So it sounds like Illinois is having a conversation on this.
Yeah, that's exactly true. It was very. It felt very good to see the process work. Mm-hmm. We went to the committee hearings, and Illinois, like I said, the framework Illinois put forward is a very, very good one. It has flaws, like any legislation does, but the ability to add conditions they're all doctors and patient advocates that sit on this committee, mm-hmm. and it was very fair to the way they went about it. I thought They gave pretty explicit reasons why they didn't like certain conditions or what way the petition was worded, or that there wasn't enough evidence, which is obviously kind of a catch-22 now because everybody wants studies. Well, we can't study it unless we're allowed to. Right now, under DEA and NIDA rules, we can't study it except without their approval. So, everybody wants studies, everybody wants data, but until we figure out a way to do these clinical trials and not have them shut down like they did at ASU to Dr. Sicily, right? We're not going to have that hard data. But what we do know that's indisputable is that we've had 6,000 years or more of cannabis use and not a single death attributed to overdose. No other medicine or drug can say that. Yeah, not a single. Table salt is more toxic than cannabis. So, I think people are starting to see that the worst case scenario is not very bad in this case. So you figure out you don't like cannabis as a medicine. It makes you anxious or makes you paranoid or whatever. So you stop using it. Yeah. There you go.
That's how that works.
Yeah. You don't get addicted to it. You don't. Even edibles, which in my view can be bad for the industry just because of the randomness of how you might feel and the chance of somebody having a bad experience from an edible. Is basically 50-50.
Well, we just talked to Bob Esquino about edibles testing. Mm-hmm. We talked to Julie Berliner. We talked to Julie Dooley. All three edibles, producers, and how seriously they take not only packaging but also testing to make sure that there is consistency in those products. But as far as today, I understand what you're saying.
Well, a lot of it has to do with the way that you do the extraction and how you emulsify. Mm-hmm. The viscosity of the extract obviously is important. If you have a very, very tarry extract, it's a lot harder to emulsify that and get it evenly spread amongst whatever batter or whatever it is you're making. Mm-hmm. I liken it to you get vanilla ice cream with a caramel swirl in it. You'll have a lot of bites that's just vanilla ice cream, but then you'll get that one bite that's got a huge amount of caramel in it. So. Fixing that problem is very important, and then understanding why it is that ingesting it through the stomach gives you a totally different high than a total different feeling than if you had smoked flower of the same strain. Yeah, nobody could truly give a good scientific reasoning to that.
Well, we have no studies, as you mentioned.
So that's our plan is to figure out a lot of these questions. Yeah. Why different temperatures? The entourage effect. The fact that these terpenes and cannabinoids in different ratios why they have different effects.
Yeah.
We need to understand that.
How much testing internally can you do, at your operation to answer some of the questions simply for yourselves?
Well, we can't have contact directly with patients, so it would have to be through a volunteer basis through a dispensary, and it would be more of a survey type thing. We wouldn't be able to do a clinical type study.
Right.
But knowledge is power, especially in this industry. As much data as we can compile, the better we're going to be at making medicine. So we're going to try to work with work with dispensaries to work with patients to get feedback on strains and how does this particular application work for your condition. Does this sublingual work better than smoking it? Does and getting the data on those things so we can design and come out with more effective delivery systems and strains.
There you go. You've said that a few times, and you're definitely going to be doing that in Illinois. Are you looking anywhere else?
Florida. We'll be applying in Florida for one of the 5 licenses. We're also looking at Vermont, Hawaii, Missouri. Ohio is in an interesting state. I'm not sure if you know anything about the legislation there, but that's one of the.
Talk about it.
Well, there's a ballot initiative there, or a constitutional amendment initiative there, that would essentially bake into the Constitution 8 or 9 parcels in Ohio that would qualify to grow cannabis, which is crazy.
Yeah.
That basically the only qualification to grow cannabis in that state is owning one of these pieces of property.
Right.
But it looks like it's going to go. They've dumped the group behind that initiative. I think dumped. The last time I saw it was like $3.6 million or something into that, and they've had. At last count, I think they had 300,000 of the 350,000 roughly signatures that they needed to get it done.
Right.
But if that's what it takes to get it started, that's what it takes. Like I said, a lot of this legislation is not perfect.
Right.
But it's what we have. It's what we have. A lot of it's horse trading. Political horse trading.
Sure.
If we'll pass it, you'll get these 3 votes if you add this restriction, or you take these conditions off, or limit it by this, limit the licenses to this number. So, I understand why some of these things some of this legislation is screwy, but the Ohio thing I can't seem to wrap my head around.
Right. Well, that's a new one, definitely. Yeah. Florida. Talk about Florida because. We've had some interesting things happen in Florida. So what's the latest, and what are you? Where are you?
The latest in Florida is, as of right now, I think we have until the 27th, roughly, until a judge has to make a ruling on a lawsuit.
May 27, 2015.
Yep.
Go on.
Correct. And once that decision is made, there's been 4 lawsuits dismissed already. The 5th looks like it probably will be 2. If that's the case, then we'll have 5 licenses broken up into 5 zones in Florida, and you have to be a nursery operator for 30 years and grow 400,000 plants to qualify.
Aha.
So again, you can imagine how that came about.
Right.
Somebody that wrote the legislation is in the nursery business, obviously, but how nobody catches on to these things, or how it's not made a bigger deal, I don't know. But we fortunately have been able to acquire a nursery down in Florida that qualifies. So.
Oh, look at that! All right. So if you can't beat them, join them, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's hard to beat City Hall sometimes, so you just gotta do what you can to get yourself in the game.
All right. Let's just go through the rest of them. Vermont.
Vermont is a full rec state, as I remember. It's only got 650,000 people, I think, in Vermont, but it is a full adult use state. I forgot the timelines, but that's right around the corner. Hawaii is one I'm really interested in for several reasons, just because it's Hawaii. But I would love to have a reason to spend a lot of time there. But there's only, I believe, 8 licenses and then 2 dispensaries per cultivation license. I'm pretty sure.
Right.
That might have changed a little bit. But I didn't realize that Hawaii's been legal for 15 years, but there's just not been any commercial regulation for growing. Then Missouri is another one we're looking at. We're Show Me Cannabis down in Missouri's done a really good job.
Sure.
John Payne and his group have done a really good job legislatively down there. Again, it's a severely restricted CBD law right now. But, again, it's what you can get done, and then you just work to expand them.
Find out what the rules are, play the game.
Yeah, then work from within, try to work within to expand it and make it better.
All right. So, Tim, we've got these two final questions that we ask everybody. First question, what has most surprised you in cannabis? Second question, what has most surprised you in life? For you specifically, you Chicago guy, I demand different answers. For some of our guests, we're fine to have somewhat of a Venn diagram overlap and whatever. But I need two different answers from you. First, what has most surprised you in cannabis?
I feel like what I'm about to say has probably been said by almost everybody, and it's the speed at which this industry moves.
Absolutely.
I liken it to the microchip or an industry like that, where it doubles every 18 months or whatever. In cannabis, a month is like a year in any other business.
Yeah.
I mean, the opportunities that present themselves come at such a high rate that discerning which ones what you want to do and doing due diligence, you have to be very, very reactive and be able to pounce on things as they make themselves available to you.
Right.
Which is difficult because there's from state to state, and there's so much difference state to state that you really have to become an expert on each state's regulations.
Sure. One of the reasons why you own a nursery in Florida.
Correct. And then personally, I'm really surprised that I'm sitting here. To be honest with you, I've if you would have told me 10 years ago that this is what I'd be doing, I'd have laughed at you. I would have said that'd be awesome, but I don't see it happening. So, it's really, really makes me feel good to see how fast public opinion has changed on this. If we could only get our representatives to catch up.
Right.
One of the surprising things to me is through this process, I wasn't very political before getting into cannabis, and seeing the underbelly, essentially, of the political process has been pretty disturbing. The number of legislators that and elected officials that have said directly to my face, Tim, I agree with you, but I have to get reelected. And
they just say that right to you.
Yeah. Pulled no punches. It's like, wow, really?
Yeah.
You don't listen to your constituents at all. Public opinion is so far. I don't think there's a poll you can do now that's less than 50%. I mean, everything's in the mid 50s to mid 60s, and I think that especially the RNC, the Republican Party, needs to realize that this is their chance to reach across generations. They're losing young Republicans at a huge clip. Right? I mean, and then somebody like Rand Paul. I mean, that guy has the ability and. I spent some time with him last week, a few hours at dinner, and actually have a meeting tonight with his campaign manager. We need to put Rand Paul in office, quite frankly. He has the ability to single-handedly change the landscape for us.
Yeah.
He's our biggest advocate at a federal level. He's I think in most people, you look at his stance on things, it's all common sense stances. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that would identify as Democrats, quite frankly, that could vote Republican because of social issues. Nobody cares anymore what you do in your bedroom and what you do. My generation, the people under 40, are very live, let live.
Yeah.
If you're not breaking my arm or picking my pocket, leave me alone.
Yeah, got it.
And that's Senator Paul's stance on things, and I think that's if the Republican Party has any chance, they have to realize that they have to reach across the generations, and they have to become more socially liberal and more libertarian, essentially.
Right.
But I think if Senator Paul wins Iowa, I think he has a good chance. And even if he doesn't get the nomination, he's keeping cannabis in the conversation right now.
Yeah, at a very high level.
Yes, and so he's a great ally, and we're definitely going to do whatever we can to see him win the nomination.
Fair enough. Tim, I want to come back once your doors are open and have another one of these conversations. Until then, please stay away from the bench press, okay?
Thank you very much for having me.
You got it, Tim.
All right.
So I guess there are no stereotypes in the industry of cannabis. Tim McGraw with an unlikely story that starts off with him as a 19-year-old loan officer and at least at this point has him as a license owner here in Illinois and nursery owner in Florida. So folks are awfully nimble at this point, again, in the industry.